if you watched that yesterday, I just want to say thank you very much. I hope you found it useful. And if you haven't watched that one and you're interested in a career in hospitality, or maybe you know somebody who is, you can watch that on demand. So make sure you make a note of that. Anyway, I've been rude and haven't introduced myself. I'm Heather, and I am your host of this Learn Lounge talk. So we do have a few things to cover here. So the talk should be around 45 minutes. And don't forget as well, if you've got this or your phone, to come up with some questions that you can ask our guest today, because we'll be doing that at the end. And also you can join this conversation on social media, like I said before, #LearnLounge. So you can post that on your Twitter, your Facebooks, your Instagram. Share this to people, especially right now. I think it could be really helpful for your friends, for people you know, to be inspired. And also, we are raising money for the Children's Trust, which I'll be talking to you about at the end. So if you do want to donate, stick around. I'll tell you all about this incredible charity at the end. But today, we have an incredible guest. We have Tom McCumiskey, the director of Wood Mint Consulting. So if you're interested in technology, this is definitely a talk for you. So Tom knew he wanted to get into technology and knew that was the field he wanted to get into, but the way he got there was a little bit different, and it's what he's doing today, which is an information architect. So there's a lot that will be covered in this talk, from his journey from university to changing to an apprenticeship, and how it helped him rediscover his true career path. So he's really excited to share with you some useful resources about technology, and also the importance of self-awareness, which sounds incredible. So I'm super excited to welcome Tom to the Learn Lounge. Hello, Tom.
Hello, Heather. You've been plenty of build-up. Now I just have to try and figure out how to be great, exciting, interesting, insightful, I think was used there as well, and have a good story as well. So I'll have to figure out. 100%. We shall see. We shall see. The audience is, of course, the judge of any good artist or presenter. Cool. So my screen should be showing on a screen near you.
It definitely is.
Super. So first challenge, I use this word medley a while back on a talk in Aston University, and it was the challenge you always have when trying to introduce someone is try and condense a human life down to a couple of minutes at the beginning to give someone a feel of who they are. So I hope to talk to a lot of the different themes in here of sort of my life, why I've ended up doing the job I do now, the tips to how I think about or have improved my ability to do well at that job and eventually get to that job. And all of which I think we were talking just before this started, which was an interesting question of what is a job? And the very brief answer I gave there was a job is where you give up some of your time to solve other people's problems. So the best way when you're younger, we spoke about, is like, why do parents give chores? And you may think it's to be cruel, take away all your time and teach you about responsibility. It's actually because parents don't want to do chores, and ideally for a small amount of money can allow someone else to do it for them, which may be you, which gives you a very simple insight. If you're doing that, you're performing a job for that person. And then how do you do that in a particular career path? Well, you start learning about the problems of the people who have created those jobs. They essentially do not want to do something or do not have enough time to do something, and therefore need someone to fill that gap. So this is me. This is a photo from my Italian friend in Denmark, who changed my name from Tom to Tommaso because it sounded cooler. And I split my time between Birmingham and Bristol, both very different but very cool cities. So I started with, you notice the more you work in a company that you start talking a completely different language. It's almost the extreme of this. If when you're younger you don't really know what a job is, when you get a job you come up with as many complicated words as possible to confuse everyone else so they don't know what a job is. So I've written two parts of here. So the business speak is I am a consulting information and solutions architect. I currently lead a team establishing an information management function within the Technology Services Department at EDF's Hinkley Point C nuclear new build company. This involves the development of a target operating model to detail the processes, systems, and people required to effectively and efficiently deliver information of good quality. Now, what does that mean? If you work for long enough, it's a bit like being on the playground or with your friends, or if you operate on things like Instagram or TikTok, you get what would be called memes now, a little slang, little in-jokes that only the people within that world will understand. So I've tried to translate. So I'm a self-employed person, so I essentially work for myself, and the way in which I earn my money is I try and help people solve problems. And the way in which I solve those problems are I have to draw diagrams to try and get a picture of what exactly is going wrong, generally around information, which is a horribly vague word that has a very specific meaning, and solution. So what this means is, say you're taking notes for your school, and if you're writing down the notes for just yourself, then you'd probably be able to scribble them in whatever form you want. Occasionally you'll look back and you'll go, I have no idea what that means. But if you had to, say, record those notes and hand them out to your classmates, you might go, okay, so I now need to write this down in more detail, get a better picture around it. And then if you go, well, I need to distribute this particular set of notes to thousands, if not hundreds of people, say a bit like this talk today. If I scribbled down on a sort of a post-it note in my flat, Heather would find it very difficult to know where that post-it note is, what's on it, and to give the presentation or to say anything about it. So I help businesses to try and understand what their problem is. So my current one, series of engineers in France need to articulate a design for the construction of a nuclear power station in England, and then the office is in Bristol, and then the site itself is on the Bristol Channel. This is a problem because those people are completely separated from one another. COVID, interesting extra layer for trying to run a business. Now none of the people are in the offices in France, Bristol, or site. So how do we give them the tools they need to communicate effectively and to ensure that the engineering design written down in France is communicated to our workers in Bristol and is then implemented on site? And so the technology you're seeing today, things like Zoom or SpringPod's own technology, is some of the pieces in how you might build that solution. And then finally, I'm doing a target operating model. What does that mean? Well, because I'm self-employed, I ideally want to go and experience lots of different businesses in different places. And the problem is, if I just performed exactly the role I needed to do at Hinkley Point, then only I would be able to do it. So my additional challenge, not only in trying to come up with the solution to the problem, is to write down the steps someone might have to take to do what I did. So that if I disappeared or joined a cult or just slacked off and played video games or watched Disney Plus's extensive Marvel films collection, someone else could still do that job. So we go from this sort of tangled web of buzzwords and very specific sort of slang from the world of business to a very simple, well, I travel and I'm there to articulate a problem for someone. And to understand it and then to offer a solution and then a way of repeating that solution so that if I disappeared, someone can take my place and do the job as well. And it's from here that, or from the end of the journey, that throughout this talk, I'd like you to just think about 4 questions that I have. That doesn't work well. 4 questions that I have developed answers to myself that have helped me be better at the job I'm doing. And it focuses on a sort of cycle of day-to-day solving problems, interacting with people, and then at its core is, do you know your own mind? And the only way I can think about of articulating this very, very clearly is, I will stop talking. I will stop talking for about 15 seconds. I'd like you to close your eyes. I'd like you to try and concentrate on just what your mind's doing. And that was about 15 seconds. So did all of you think about exactly what part of your mind doing? Was there any thoughts there that just popped up? You got distracted. You thought about, was that mention of Marvel films? I quite like Marvel films. Or were you hungry? Did your mind tell you were hungry? One of the most interesting insights from my story behind that question is your mind is not always your own, that thoughts pop into it all the time that aren't necessarily what you want to concentrate on, what you think about, but they're there anyway. So that's question one. Question two is, how do you learn? So you've all sat at school and you've done maths, English, the various different sciences, the sort of the art subjects. But very rarely do we think about or consider the actual steps you take to effectively pick up that information. We're all different. So, for example, I'm quite heavily dyslexic, which essentially means my ability to read is very different to other people. It's essentially a difference of how my brain works. So I happen to be very good at, once people are talking, at remembering and understanding a lot of that. But in terms of actually reading, it takes me a long time. I only actually noticed this one day when me and my brother were reading a website. I'd made it about 5 words in, and he wanted me to scroll down to the next page, which is again back to if a job isn't real to you, at the same time, often things in your own mind aren't real because you've always been in your own mind. So obviously everyone's mind is the same. If you have learned, then you have a next problem, which is this problem of a job. How do you, once you've sort of learned all these different skills, persuade someone else that you can solve their problem, that you can listen to them, take on board what they want to do, and then go, I've got a plan. Pretty sure I can solve this. And then the last one is, let's say if we know our own minds, we know how to learn or improve our minds, and we know how to interact with other people to solve these problems, what do you have to do? And I will touch on it a little bit later, but this is all about purpose. Where are you going to direct yourself? Where is your energy best placed? Where would you get the most from being in a job you enjoy that is ultimately more like a hobby, so that you could sort of put your time into it easily, but then someone else might pay for it, in which case you'd never work a day in your life. So all of this needs a beginning, some context, a start, if you will. And the start is this 12-year-old person. His hair moved down over time through effects of gravity, presumably. And I set out as a young, possibly naive person. I came up with a plan. I didn't come up with a plan. I stole my dad's plan. My dad's plan was to get A-levels in mathematics, computing, and physics, go to university and get a degree in computer science, and then be a consultant. Now, 12-year-old me had no idea. You mean I got a little bit of maths and computing and physics. Didn't really know what university. It was meant to be like school, but subtly different somehow. And people say it's different, but they don't. It never feels real. It's just like, okay, I'm going to go learn something. I kind of get to choose something more like what I want, but beyond that, it seems vague. And then be a consultant, which sounds like a tagline of a brand somewhere. And then everything else works. Brilliant plan. And this talk will go into how good was that plan. Now, for any of you who've learned, I've learned that my ability to think ahead is about worthwhile about a week in advance. I let 12-year-old me come up with a 10-year plan, and then I didn't question it. I was just like, plan done, future sorted, put that in a box somewhere, go back to watching Marvel films, playing video games, hanging out with my friends, being bad at football, while pretending that I was good at football, and so forth. So let's see what actually happened. So almost every single point in the plan, at some point, for different reasons, did in fact go wrong. And then other things that I thought weren't part of the plan went right and somehow came together to get me my career now. So I was doing A-levels in maths, physics, and IT. Now it's almost uniformly rebranded to computing, or from information technology. At this point in my life, my parents divorced, so I lived on my own as my dad worked abroad for this particular time. And if there's no one there to tell you what to do, then you quickly discover that freedom is great. So my attendance dropped down in the first year, and I paid the consequences with some very bad grades. So that part of the plan went wrong. What do I need to change? Probably put some effort in to read and understand the course material, and not to get distracted. So I seemed to be struggling a little bit, so I resat the year and of A-levels, and that got my grades up to a much better standard. I think AAC in the end, so from like DEU, not good, to pretty good. And that was through a little bit of concentration, a little bit of turning up and actually taking the time to try and study and not get distracted by the ability to ignore the fact that my parents were not in earshot to say, do your homework, or do some work, or do work at school, even if it is your homework. So that gave me the opportunity to go to the University of Birmingham and do computer science. And during that particular expedition, I learnt nothing from round one of education of sixth form. So I enjoyed talking to my friends, spending time thinking about things, not computer science, or some very specific areas of computer science that I found fascinating. So a particular course, language and logic. It was all about how could you take English sentences and try and understand the rules behind them. How, when someone argues for something, what are they arguing for specifically? So at the end of my first year, I sat down with the university, and they sort of looked at my overall module grades, which was like fail, 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 language and logic, 90%, and then fail, fail. And they sort of spoke to me about, why exactly have you done well in this module and done nothing in all of the others? And I couldn't really explain it at the time, but it was the fact that I found it fascinating. And whenever you find something fascinating, it becomes more like a hobby. You spend time on it that you don't really feel like is you sitting down and going, oh, I've got to study, I've got to work, I've got to do this. This is actually challenging for my brain. You go, okay, so that's how this works. But that other textbook seems to say something different. And that YouTube channel disagrees with what I've just learned here. So how does this all fit together? And so after another attempt to resit the year, me and the university parted on creative differences in the way that they wanted me to pass all of their modules, and I had my heart set on the ones I was interested in or wanted to spend time on. And that led me to be unemployed for about 2 years, sort of going down to a job centre. So if you don't know what a job is, a job centre is a place where you go to apply for the thing you don't really understand. And at this point, I still didn't really understand what a job is. I just know how to turn up to a place to try and get some money to live for the next week, to try and get hold of something I also didn't know what it was, whether I wanted it or how it was put together. Throughout all this time, I had spent an immense amount of time building computers for my friends. I lived on a cul-de-sac, and I was basically frontline IT support for anything that had gone wrong. Back to our idea of someone else's problem. Everyone on that cul-de-sac had problems, but apparently they didn't care about printer drivers or indeed fixing the network and making sure that it was put together. And the way in which I started or got the opportunity I did in terms of the future came through a conversation where I ended up combining the elements of my academic sort of career, however rocky it was, with these little favors, these little, like, I wanted to play video games. So private server, get it running, look at how the database worked, look at how the machines link together, get annoyed at the fact that my computer doesn't magically talk to my friend's computer. Why is that? Turns out there's just a pipe between them, and you need to keep putting all the little gates in that pipe need to be open. If they're not open, it gets lost. And it was in a conversation with someone at the job center that I happened across that I started speaking about not only I would like a job because I don't have any money, and it was, okay, what are you interested in? He had worked for a computing company, so we started talking about I was like, oh, okay, so how does that work? What are the problems people are solving? And that's where I went, oh, all that stuff I was doing as a hobby randomly actually helps me try and answer these questions. And it was from that conversation and being able to sit down with that person and talk to them, not about what I'd studied, but about the kind of problems that the industry he worked in and his experience had that started allowing me to go, oh, well, actually, I know a bit about this. I can help you with that. I think I could be useful for you. And so this made me think about two things. I think the first thing is stealing Nike's logo is just do it. So all the things where you want to build a hobby, or you want to mess around with something, you want to construct something. The things that went well, my language and logic course at university, the building computers for my friends, I did it, I had practical experience, I constructed something, I got something tangible at the end of it, and some experience of that. And it was only at the point when, and my current boss's phrase is, you cannot hire yourself. And this is true throughout your life. You always need someone else to help you out. We cannot be an island on our own. And it was only when I started thinking about, well, how can I take the things that I was just doing, that I was just performing in the background, and turn that into something that could solve someone else's problem, that I started making leaps forward and actually being more effective and realizing, okay, so these things are kind of connected. So I can have my hobby, and then I can combine my hobby with stuff people want solving, and that is what a job became to me. And that opportunity was with eventually a company called Capgemini, who are a technology consultancy. And what that means is, similar to what I described at the beginning, big companies need to link all of their employees together. You need the communication system so people can call one another. You need the meeting system. You need the email system. You need more and more social media-like apps. So just as there are things like Instagram for the world of social media, there's a tool called Yammer, which is far less cool, and LinkedIn, which do the same thing but for big companies. And so they go in and help to construct these various different services to help big businesses solve their problem. And their problem is not, I really, 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 really would like to buy Skype. It's actually, everyone needs to talk to one another somehow. How do we does anyone know how that works? That company goes in and goes, we know how that works. We'll set it up for you. We'll build it for you. And you ensure that your employees can work that way. And so I took on an apprenticeship. So now I have this problem I have to study. And previously I'd failed studying in the same amount of time as I still have. Days didn't change in the amount of hours I had. But now I had to perform a job and study simultaneously. And for my mode of thinking, my sort of wanting always a little challenge or to solve a problem, it actually helped immensely. It meant that at work I was helping people solve their problems, and then instead of looking at the big textbook, which I think I literally have here from university, one of many. So instead of looking at this huge artificial intelligence textbook and going, I should read this from cover to cover and then I will know how it works, I was actually going, I need to solve a problem about learning, and it turns out that this chapter has a section on it and I know what I want to do. So I started reading the books not through this looks like a pretty big challenge, but from I'm irritated by this. There has to be a way of fixing this, and this book seems to have an answer in it. And it often leads you to end up looking at more books. And so over the course of about 4 years, combining the sort of my university subject to studying computing, that well-defined path, that having to read all of this content and try and get it in my mind somewhere to answer exam questions and coursework, the way in which I managed to sneak through that, probably counterintuitively, is by spending all of my time doing something completely different, but in the same arena. So that when it came to the point where I was like, have I read the textbook? I was like, oh yeah, I have actually read the textbook. I've picked up a whole bunch of knowledge, but without realizing it, I've solved people's problems, and I start to see not only the textbook is, okay, there's knowledge, but what problems that knowledge might be suited to solving, which helped me immensely. So one of the things to think about here is we're not all the same. I, for example, massively benefited from the apprenticeship course. However, it's hard. Like I say, you spend about 7.5 days, you do your school day, and then you also have extra work on top of that. But if that way of working suits you, it can be very beneficial. Was there anything that influenced you into doing architecture? I will get onto that. There's a sales pitch on information architecture at the end that would describe that. And What this got me to thinking about is one of my favorite writers, Christopher Hitchens, has in one of his books, always do what you must, not what you want. And how he explains this is there's I want to go on a diet. I want to live up to this New Year's resolution. I want to change the world. And in his article, so the question someone had asked is, why do you write? Why are you a writer? What made you want to write? And his answer was, I didn't want to write. I had to write. He spent his days scribbling down notes and doing pieces and always chipping away at what he had to do. It wasn't what he wanted. He didn't need to motivate himself a lot of the time. He just felt something in his soul had to do that. And so I started from this apprenticeship course and looking at, okay, I have to solve problems, and therefore being in this job helps, but I still have to learn. I can't just stop picking up how computers work. It turns out I was like, well, what I have to do is solve problems. I obsess about it, which is why I have bookcases filled with things that I've been reading about, not because my work makes me do it or because my university course makes me do it, because I want to. So, for example, because I must, sorry. And I discovered I must question things. So I am at the moment going back and taking on, which is a terrible idea if you struggle with the English language, but I'm trying to do it anyway, is do a master's in philosophy, completely different to everything else. And I do that because I love discussing ideas, and I must discuss ideas. And therefore, I was like, that's a place that will make me try and discuss ideas. So whether it's technology or whether it's philosophy or whether it's art, if you must do that, think about the thing that is your hobby that you don't even think you're doing. And then you go, well, is that solving anyone's problem? It invariably is. And if it is, you can get paid for it. And there'll be courses and there'll be university ideas around it. And then you go, well, that means I could do what I really like, what I have to do, what I fundamentally can't change about myself. But find a way of getting the world to pay you and give you something back for those skills, which allows you then to start exploring the world and realizing there's even more to learn about in that particular area, which can drive you onwards. And so that seemed like career sorted. Plan bad at the start, but now working as a consultant, knowing that Ed is just a person who helps people to solve problems, specifically one that travels to particular businesses to help them solve problems. So everything was solved. You know, as the original 12-year-old's plan has stated, be consultant, life is done, everything works. It didn't quite work out that way. So I put in here, during my time at Capgemini, or those early years of my apprenticeship, I got promoted 3 times in 3 years. Pretty good. I passed all the university modules this time. No creative differences to be had. I had my own car. I had my own house, literally my own house in that picture. And despite all of this, I found myself crying on my sofa, feeling lost, alone, and apathetic. I, for whatever reason, struggled. Almost every weekend when I was at work, I had my problems. I had the thing I must do. It was fine. I could do my job. I could study. It was good. When you're a consultant, you travel for work. So I generally went back to my house, and it would be me on my own for the weekend or going out with friends. And I just, tears streaming down my face, sort of people often incorrectly link depression with sadness. It's actually far worse than that. To be sad, you need to be emotional about something to an extent, which makes you feel a little bit alive. It's more like not caring or being interested in anything, which sort of means you have to try and pick yourself up to try and do anything. And so it was at this point that I looked back, and I knew I'd struggled, obviously, through A-levels, through university, and now in the job. The difference was A-levels, I'd messed up. I'd made mistakes. There was a narrative there, a story. You go, I made a mistake, I feel bad. Yeah, that kind of makes sense. And then you go, university. I was like, all right, I made a mistake, I felt bad. Okay, I had to fix it. And then I got to the point where house, car, job I like. There's no reason anymore for me to be feeling this way, to be lost, to not have the motivation to try and wake up and do anything. So I went along and I spoke to an NHS GP who, after sort of a back and forth and a bit of understanding between those two particular pieces, diagnosed me with chronic depression, which is, they used to call it dysthymia, and I think they renamed it knowing that I was dyslexic and could never spell that, to chronic depression, which essentially means that sort of apathetic lack of feeling about wanting to do something in the world. I have a little bit all the time. And what it means is it means you have very high likelihood of, if you struggle or have a particular moment of desperation, you get a proper full-blown sort of bout of depression that you have to deal with. And so it was at this point I got recommended something called cognitive behavioral therapy, which is a complicated word for saying do little pieces. So I originally mocked being quite arrogant, sitting there going, well, I've got my apprenticeship now and I've got this job, I'm doing my university studies. This person was telling me in the morning if I spent my whole weekend in bed not wanting to get up, that I should just get up and tidy a corner of the room, or get up and listen to a song or watch a YouTube video. And I was just like, why? It's just like, I'm far smarter than all of this. I don't need to do this. And the point was not that I couldn't do that, but that through not having that willpower, that I couldn't bring myself to do simple tasks to keep my house running, to maintain various different social relationships, to make sure that I was in a good place as well as my job. So the theory was not do a little bit so you can be super clever. It was do a little bit so that you can distract yourself from your own mind telling you you're not doing anything. And the horrible twist at the end of not having the willpower to do anything is your mind wants to do something. And now you have these two ideas fighting against one another, and it's to try and break out of that. While you're cleaning, it's harder to think about that, especially if you have a rubbish Hoover, which I do. And so it was, how do I fix that? And the general method, or the general do a little piece, is one that I've applied to my work as well. Breaking down all those problems into little pieces. I don't want to study for a university degree. I want to go, for that first module, what's the question I'm interested in? What's that first piece? So certainly in my my philosophy paper, I hadn't written an essay in about 10 years. So my first question was, what does a sentence look like that would be good for the philosophy paper? Can I write one? Can I write that down? You go, okay, sentence one done, introduction solved, and then the next piece and the next piece. And alongside that cognitive behavioral therapy, I also got into mindfulness meditation, which is not a spiritual setup or religious setup. It is the idea, similar to what we did earlier, what's your mind telling you? When you quiet your mind, you realize it's not your own thoughts. Some of those thoughts are great. They're like, we've got some tasty snacks, we should get those snacks. Good thought. Or friends are, thinking about going to the cinema. I could organize a cinema trip. It's more the negative ones going, you don't want to go out today. Yeah, why do you want to go to your friends? That seems like a lot of effort. When you quieten your mind and you hear these thoughts sort of popping up, you go, we need to manage that. Because if you're not aware that you're not managing it, then similar to myself, I found myself confused and lost. I'm depressed somehow. I'm crying. I don't really know how I got here. My life says I should be happy, but my brain is telling me a lot of different things. I need to understand that. And I've tried to encapsulate this by, it's a very good song, if ever you can listen to it. And it doesn't show my age because the glory of Spotify is music has become sort of timeless. But Billy Joel, the piano man, has a song called The Stranger, where he all says we all have a face we hide away forever from other people, from ourselves. And the learning I've got from this, or from trying to break out my depression, from the therapy with the NHS, from sitting down and trying to meditate and see what's my mind up to, is we really shouldn't hide that face away, because one, it's difficult to manage if it's not working quite right, and two, others can help, and even if they can't help, they can certainly listen. I'm sure all of you have at certain points had a thought that is not necessarily great, but then your brain's gone, you know what, I think it's a pretty good idea. And eventually when you've explained it to someone else, it's turned out it was a terrible idea, but your brain's gone, now we know everything. I've got this one. It's sorted. And it's just that some cases might be good, in other cases might be bad, but whether it's your mental health or whether it's your job or whether it's sort of learning at school, being able to articulate and talk to someone else about what's going on in your mind can help you solve problems in your job. It can help you find out whether your plan for the weekend makes any sense or not, but it can also help you understand where your brain is doing things that are not necessarily good for you, good for allowing you to achieve the things you must. And therefore, you then start to build means of solving those problems, just like the job. How do you overcome them? Which brings me to, and I know someone asked earlier about architecture, how did I end up becoming an architect? And not an architect in terms of buildings, but an architect in terms of information. What the hell is that? And so I've tried to draw up the whole map of what my team does. And the reason why I've done this is some of the best people I know who work in technology know nothing about technology. So the head of the department I work in at the moment has become very knowledgeable, but doesn't have any interest in technology. What she and another one of my friends who's a project manager are brilliant at are getting people to work together. Because no matter how clever you are at knowing everything within the big textbook, you still need to work with other people. And you need those people to be organized. Some problems are bigger than just like sort of me. So you might go coursework. If you try to work in a group, that becomes hard. And there are some people who aren't necessary in terms of they're deep subject matter expert, but they motivate you. They point you in the right direction. They stop you from getting distracted. As you might notice from some of the things I'm saying, I'm easily distracted down sort of rabbit warrens about ideas that you could discuss. And so what you need is a series of people. You need to build a team, exactly like if you were setting up to sort of go on an expedition or your sports team. You need the right people in the right places, and the person who's the best manager is not necessarily the best striker or goalkeeper, or they're not necessarily the best storyteller. The person who writes a story could be better told if Leonardo DiCaprio was acting it. He didn't actually respond to my calls about this presentation, but I'm sure he'll get back to me. And so in the beginning, there is this customer, this person with a problem, in my case, who wants to know something. Information management is always about someone going, I've got to manage my business, but I don't know how many people are working for me, how much I'm paying for them, and where they are. How do I get that? How do I get that answer out of people? And so the first step on this ladder is, well, you need the person who articulates what that looks like, the business analyst, we call it. And they're the investigator, the sort of sit down, listen to the customer, put together a more structured view of the problem. And then that it often becomes, I call it the Rolling Stones principle. So sometimes you get what you need, not what you want, is the lyric in one of their songs. And so these people's job is to find, well, what's the core of this person's problem? Some things are going to massively affect them. Other pieces are probably floating around their head. Like we said, we're not always conscious of all of our thoughts, might not necessarily be part of what they're describing. So how do we help sort of separate what these out? At that point, once we've got a clear view of the problem, this is where the sort of the solution architect comes in. So this person's job is primarily to paint a picture of how we solve the problem. So for example, you can't just build a bunch of computers, or you can't just build a sports team, or you can't just write a story. You need a structure to that story. You need to write down a couple of ideas first to go, yeah, that looks like we're traveling in the right direction. And so my job is really starting to articulate the first part of that story of going, okay, what are the pieces at play? So within the diagram I've drawn here, it was a mentoring solution. It was, well, we've got these workers, and a worker could be a mentor, it could be a mentee, they could be organizing the mentoring, and they're going to do things. So they're going to manage the users, they're going to manage matching those people together, they're going to manage events between the mentors, and they're going to monitor performance. And then that gives you those smaller chunks of problem, similar to the cognitive behavioral therapy. We don't have this big problem of how do you do mentoring anymore. We have little smaller problems. And the art of a good architect in information or process, or just in general, you don't have to be a specialist, is to articulate and take that big problem and start to break it up into smaller chunks, And then once you've broken it into small enough chunks, the project manager can get involved. Do not hire the person in the photo for this job. They will not do well. But their basic goal is, how do we get from A to B? We know where we are, and we've got this now broken down idea of the future. How do we get there? And how do we bring the people together to build the team we need to? And then finally, once we've got our team, how do we make sure that the architects, who I have my big dream of this utopian future, and me and the customer at this point are probably working with one another to go, yeah, we know exactly what's possible. Anything is possible. And then you need a developer to actually try and build something with application code, or if you're in engineering, to simply build a car or a bike or a building in terms of Hinckley's construction. And reality is going to tell you that every grand idea you came up with doesn't necessarily work. So we sometimes have to go round this cycle a couple of times, where we understand the customer's core problem. We pass that to the architect. The architect invents utopia. We then eventually get to a developer who goes, actually, that's not how the world works. You're going to have to change your ideas a little bit. So we talk back to the customer again, and we have to apologize. And we go, Tom's who were let down by the current school systems. I get that. But yeah, so we go round this cycle until we come to a solution. And I don't have enough time here to go into the exact way in which all of these pieces fit together. But luckily, they all wrote down how they work. So I put here what's the thinking behind each of those roles? Well, the business analysis is the Sherlock Holmes, the investigator of what is the crime, what's going on. And if you search for Business Computing Society business analysis, there's a book. It describes all about how people in business investigate this. It literally says, well, if you want to find things out, these are the ways you find things out. So if you know you want or you like investigating things, and you have that book, you can start interrogating it from I want to know what the steps are in how someone's doing something. And then you go, process architecture. I want to write down a process for that. And then you go, they're saying something about people, and they're all over the place. I don't know how they work. And you go, there's a bit on organization, how I might write down, well, there's a school, and the school has a head teacher, and the head teacher is broken down further, and they all have responsibilities. Architects, as well as they should, have also written down exactly how they think. So there's a place called the Open Group Architecture Framework. Again, if you want to know about how you solve, you start articulating the pictures, the diagrams of that world. They have it all. They've written it all down. It's there to investigate. And then if you go, you have a practical solution, something you must do is, I need to be able to write this down in more detail. That's a place where people have ideas about how you could do that. Project management, the same. They have these ideas. They have written them down. So if you have that, I love organizing people. I may want to make sure everyone knows their role. They know what to do. And they need to make sure they follow the steps, right? There's help there. People have written down those ideas. And by understanding the ideas, you get a little bit of the slang, the things business has come up with to describe this world. And then you can that helps, because unfortunately not everyone knows the fact that they're using business technical speak, and they've disappeared into a corner of the playground where no one else understands what they're talking about. But it gives you a little bit of an understanding of how they think about the world. And the same with software engineering is, you go, I love building and tinkering with things. Well, in the Nike Just Do It, you can download almost every single programming language like Python for free. It's there. It's on the internet. Just go and search Python and you'll get idle and it'll be there. You can start building something. You get a project. You go, me and my brother recently, who you saw wandering around, tried to build a snake using AI. So there's a Nokia game called Snake, where the snake wanders around, it gets snacks. And our project for a weekend was to try and get it working. We learned more about ourselves. So, for example, one insight from this is we gave Terry the idea that if it never died, then it would get points. What it did is it just ran around in circles. So it pointed out we were dumber than it was. It knew how to cheat our system. But all of these things are written down. So if you know what you must do, and obviously the world beyond technology has this as well, well, find out what the problems are. Find out the books or the ideas people have written. And then when you're trying to solve your problem, look through the books, even if it's just at the content page, and go, oh, that looks kind of similar to what I'm trying to solve. I'll read, see if it's useful, see if it's not. But solving through little problems rather than from, here's the textbook, try and take it on. And this is the question I pose at this particular point is sort of the problem, the how do you articulate the story, how do you do it, is like, who is the strongest Marvel character? You're just like, who is the best member of the team? And you can go, well, it's the Hulk. The Hulk is the best Marvel character. And you go, but actually, he's just strong. He needs to be Banner to be clever. And even if he is just Banner, Tony Stark's smarter than he is as Iron Man, but he's not as powerful as Thor. And you start going, it doesn't work. No technology company can work without people who are good at working with people. So even if you know nothing about technology, if you like organizing, if you like working in a team to help them towards their goal, you can work in technology. You can, in fact, work in more industries than, say, I can in terms of just knowing how computers and the architecture piece works, right? I have to build the team and try and get them to work, but the person who can organize me and point me in the right direction, so Steve, who told me I can't hire myself, that helps, right? It's just something on that particular journey. So to finish, to wrap this up, probably over time, those questions again, how do I know my own mind? Well, I use mindfulness meditation, and I use friends, and I use that, do a little piece every day to try and pick that learning up. How do I learn? Whenever I end up getting attached to a particular topic, I can't read that quickly, so audiobooks solve that problem quite neatly. Or short intro books. If you don't want to read the big textbook, there are little textbooks. Find little textbooks, but again, that little sort of steps towards it. And then finally, the experiments. I try and build something, try and solve a project with that, and then conversation, talk to other people. Turns out they might go, oh, actually, you've got better ideas than I do. That's interesting. And you know what? You might be able to work for me. You might be able to solve a problem I've got. How do I persuade others? Normally through questions. You probably notice I pose a lot of questions in here. And part of that is, what are the questions that tease out exactly what someone thinks? And then finally, how do I solve their problem? Well, I need those logical frameworks. I need that structure to at least allow me to paint that picture in a way that both the customer understands that I'm going to solve their problem, and the developer understands that I've not told them to break the laws of physics or to build more computers than possible. And then what do I have to do? Well, what I have to do actually has nothing to do with technology. I love solving problems, whether it be presenting. How do I present better? How do I think about that and articulate the ideas of presentation to other people? That's the thing that I have to do. Technology is a good place. There's loads of problems. As noted, I think, by some of the other Learn Lounges, technology rarely works as you expect it to. There's always something to try and solve. And it's those questions that, I suppose, if you get anything out of this talk, that do you know your own mind? How do you learn? Could you persuade someone else you could solve their problems? And then what do you have to do? What is just part of you that you do without thinking about it? And that's probably, in my opinion and Mr. Hitchens' opinion, the road to finding a career and a set of problems to solve that you can enjoy and keep doing for a considerable period of time, and avoid dropping out of university as you go, nah, those modules aren't for me, not feeling it. And I've added some interesting books I've liked, grouped by a couple of areas, and I hope the slides get distributed out afterwards. If not, you can probably find me on LinkedIn and send me a message, and I'll ping the slides over. And then some links in terms of those practical, well, what if I don't know what to do in technology, but I want to solve problems? All of these places, so Microsoft, everything I know, they've already put on their website, and they update it faster than I can think. Coursera, free courses. Amazon, free courses, free ideas. They've written it all down. We're very good in the technology world of writing everything down. We hide it quite well, but it's there. And it's the combination of, if you do want to get into technology, you don't want to apply those principles today, this is some of the roads by which you can learn what these big companies are thinking about, the kind of problems you might want to learn about being able to solve. And I think on that note, I will stop talking. We'll probably look at questions. But hopefully that was interesting. That was great. But I'd have to listen to your feedback on that rather than
thank you so
pose
much,
questions.
Tom. Yeah, for that informative, and what you said there about sort of overcoming failure and changing your path. And I definitely resonated what you said about like meditation and mindfulness. I think people underestimate the power of the mind and getting to know yourself. So I hope everyone at home enjoyed the talk as much as I did. So yeah, we've got some questions that are going to be coming up, so we can have a look at these to see. Yeah, so if you have a question for Tom, please send those in, and we can get to answering those. Okay. Also, make sure that you hashtag Learn Lounge as well to tag it on like Twitter. Like I said, find Tom on LinkedIn for those specific slides, or we'll probably distribute those as well because they were very informative. So yeah, we have some questions coming through using the Q&A tab. There we go. I found it.
Magic powers.
Magic power. So we have, I mean, everyone has like a guest name. So we have guest 369. Thank you very much for your question. They've asked, do you think having some relevant work experience while at school can help narrow my career choices, especially if I'm looking at the IT space? So what's your answer to that, Tom? What advice could you give?
I think so. One of the pieces that I can recommend most is the concept of a job. You mean I can philosophize and try and explain it to the best of my ability, but there is no substitute for actually going along and experiencing what happens in a big company. So, for example, Capgemini have a company I used to work for. They have a lot of sort of, I think at 16, 18, the various different gates when you move between school eras, the chance to do work experience or internships, and lots of companies do. And there is, if my path is indicative of anything, it's trying stuff gives you a good idea of how that works and how that fits together. And certainly being able to find companies you don't know about online is difficult. So certainly places like SpringPod, I didn't plan for that plug, by the way, would be useful, right? And the other place that I didn't use enough is I took my dad's plan, but I didn't hold enough conversations with him about what that day-to-day entails, what the actual part of consulting is about. And I think you need to persuade people to allow you to solve problems. One of the benefits of academia and your parents and your family and your friends is they want to help you, that you don't need to persuade them. Your persuasion is, I'm keen to try and learn about how this world fits together. And then if they know places, they can help you. So I would definitely look at places like SpringPod, but then also include people you know, because people you know, if you can persuade them, they're already in a business and they can probably talk to their boss and go, well, I've got this up and coming or promising person who's really interested, really keen in this area. Chances are they'll be like, yeah, that sounds interesting. They can come in, they can have a look around, or they can be an intern. So definitely seek the opportunity to test your ideas. If 12-year-old me has learned anything, it's come up with an idea and then see what happens when you try and implement it, rather than leaving it in your head, whether it be about your mental health or about what you want to do as a career path.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much. We also have guest 103 has asked, did your family and friends support your decision to drop out of university?
I think it depends on the family, right? So you have lots of different aspects when you go to university. One is sort of the prestige around going to university, or going to reputable university, or going along that plan and people going, he's doing well. I think some parts of my family were very supportive and understood. I think other parts, neither me nor them articulated ideas as clearly as we could have, and actually struggled to communicate effectively for that particular piece. I think certainly for me, it was not working. And there are a series of problems I learned about. So, for example, the fact that suffering from chronic depression can make it hard to try and self-study and work on your own if you have no idea why you quite happily lie in your bed for days on end. And then when you do get up, you're like, FIFA is pretty good. Or you know what, we'll go play football, or there's a film on, we can do that. So I think being able to communicate and understand the sort of your motives and explain them to your family can help. Obviously, everyone is affected differently by these particular events. But I think if or eventually you can articulate and understand and work through the I'm not dropping out because you're lazy. People are rarely just lazy. Like, people could be in the wrong course. So, for example, I had a friend who has a fantastic career path where he went from secondary education as his degree. He completed that, but turns out he just didn't like teaching. Problem. If you want to go into a teaching career. So then he went into working at a dentist's. Didn't like that. And then finally he got a job in construction, doing quantity surveying, and he quite like that, learned it and improved. So it's if dropping out of university is the right choice for you, because it's not what you must do. It's like me, computer science, university was something I wanted to do. I wanted to do it since I was 12, but it wasn't what was going to force me to succeed in that environment. And the longer you sort of dwell in that environment, which has set yourself up to failure, you're not quite set up yourself to deal with that environment, being able to think carefully about what the next practical step is. What's the little solution to solving that particular piece? So, for example, my little solution was bad. It was drop out of university and have no plan. Read a lot of Shakespeare. But the actual solution that is easy to sell to family and friends is like, well, I know kind of the area I'm interested in, say, at the moment, say philosophy. And I know jobs in philosophy are scarce. So you go, I want to look for an opportunity to pay for part-time study. So similar to what I'm doing now. And I also want to find a job in an area that you might take. One of my friends at university went from his philosophy degree. He dropped out and he went to did a lot of charitable work in Africa and other places for Oxfam and a couple of other different areas. So his sort of dropout plan is much more compelling than mine, which is like, look, I want to help people, I want to think about the world, but the practical reading and the sitting in university isn't for me. My steps are, well, I can try and earn money while traveling the world a little bit to help other people, and that can support me in studying that piece. So family and friends are always difficult. We all have different angles and ideas and ways we want to speak. But I think that the practical answer is, if you do think you've chosen the wrong course, if you do think it doesn't align well with you, is to have a new plan or a new little step on where you might want to get to.
Yeah, some great advice there. We've also got guest 260. They said, did anyone bring you down by saying or doing things to you while you started to get into architecture?
So, oddly enough, within computing, architecture is primarily for people with hair much grayer than mine. I've done well, so I'm 28. I'm not super old, but I look older now from how my face has changed over time. But no, so when I joined the architecture team, it was filled with pretty much everyone about 20 years older than me, very experienced, very knowledgeable, and it was difficult for me to initially get into that world. You can't just go, I am now an architect. People will trust me to expound and explore their problems for them. And so I had a very good series of mentors. So I had a mentor who's brilliant at programming, taught me a lot about how to build machines and set them up right. I had another phenomenal mentor who took me on when I was more, I like to program and build things, and less, what is the problem? How do we expound this? And I think there are people who get in your way always, and part of the great journey, I think, in a book over there somewhere by Confucius, he has a good piece of advice, which is, no matter how sort of negative or how much someone wants to get you down, the feedback they give you is one of two things. Either they're just trying to be mean, right? They're just trying to upset you, in which case you must learn to cultivate your ability to ignore that, let it go, because that's them winning. The other one, and the way you can turn your greatest enemies into your greatest allies, is, well, maybe their feedback is true. Maybe actually I can learn from what they're saying. So I got feedback from one of my early bosses saying I was a bit arrogant. I find confidence easy when I'm not left to myself. And the other good advice he gave me is, I spoke in a very jargonistic, technical way. It was difficult to understand me unless you'd read the textbook. I got lost and just spoke as they did. And so even if he wanted to get me down or be negative, which he didn't, he wanted to support me. But those kind of comments, sometimes there is a nugget of truth in there that can help you improve. So find the people who want to support your career. They'll be out there. It's like any big company is like a little village, right? Your gang on the playground. You have to hang out with the same people on a daily basis. If you find the group of people you enjoy spending time with, that those people are willing to help you learn and improve, then that's a good place. If those people within a company are not helping, so I moved a couple of times inside my company when I was struggling to get the work I wanted to, and then I eventually left to work with another group of people, and it was always, are these people still helping me? So I now know what I must do. I now know that they can offer good advice, but the advice the person who hired me gave me is, you're more valuable than you think you are. And what if you follow the, I want to learn, I want to improve, I want to know what architecture is and get into it? The answer is, you'll very quickly pick up the techniques and you'll struggle somewhere. You're not going to get everything right. But if you find the group of people who want to support you in doing that, fantastic. The other thing is, it's not easy. None of these jobs are easy. So if they were easy, everyone would be doing them. But those people who must do it, who have the passion, who can go forth and learn about all these different ideas, can get places they didn't expect they could. And so find the places that will promote you. And if those places won't, you've learned to persuade people that you can solve problems for them. So go find those people and get on to the next set. I mean, again, shifting jobs is just another skill. You might want to do it as a consultant a lot, or you might go, I really like my village, I want to stay here. They're both good plans, as long as you know you do like that place and you do like moving a lot. So it's find people you like working with, learn from your enemies if they have truth to tell you that they didn't realize, and if people don't want you around, find people who do. Persuade the people who don't think you're for them that you actually are. You can help them. Not everyone is just against you for irrational reasons. Some people might have a reason. You know what that is. You can persuade them that it's wrong, or you can improve yourself to make sure that in the future that's not true. When they say, "Oh, you're just speaking technical mumbo jumbo," you go, "No. I've worked on that. I've improved. I've helped myself."
Awesome. Thanks for that. And guest 276 says, was there anything that influenced you into doing architecture?
I think there's two career paths. So me and a very, very good friend, she's a project manager, and I became an architect, and we both started in the same place as doing a little bit of technical development work over a period of time. And I think it depends how you envisage the world. So I have always seen the world as a series of systems, and architecture became like a language for me to be able to describe how that worked. It's what I had to do. I was sitting there going, I don't know how this works. I'm going to draw a picture of it. My friend, on the other hand, goes, I don't know how this works. I'm going to find someone who knows how to work. I'm going to make sure I organize them and a team around them, and they're going to solve the problem for me. So it's that, how do you think about the problem? If you go, I'm going to go find some experts and they're going to help me out, but I'm going to be the person who knows you're doing that. You need to tell this person at this time this, otherwise they're going to sort of struggle. Then that's the kind of thing that led me down to architecture, more of the formal, how do I describe and paint a picture of how this works? And I can quite happily stare at those diagrams forever. Whereas sitting in a meeting trying to make other people do work is where I struggle. It's one of the areas at work at the moment I'm trying to improve the most, because I'm trying to lead a team. But I actively know that I want to be hidden in a box somewhere, writing down how the architecture works and eventually going, you solve it like this. So that's something I've currently find very, very difficult, and I'm enjoying trying to get better at motivating people. But that tends to be what leads you down certain roles. Again, your enthusiasm, your passion allows you and is visible to other people, right? So it happens that architects were like, oh, he's really keen on this. And what you find is, if someone's interested in something, then they want to talk about it. And if that person's interested in the area of the world you want to get into and you like talking about it, you have conversations. And then you don't need to really persuade those people because they'll want to help you on your path to where you get to. So it happens that the people I spoke long periods of time out when I was at meals or at work with were the people who loved architecture because it was more me, whereas me and the project manager sort of begrudgingly sat by one another, with one of us going, I want to plan things, and sort of me going, I actually want to figure out the solution to things. And so we had less to sort of talk about, and neither of us shared that passion.
All right, great. Well, thank you, Tom. That's all the time we have for the questions. But I guess if you do want to ask Tom a question, find you on LinkedIn, and then you could give them some advice if you want to. Anyway, I just want to thank everyone for tuning in today. And of course, this Learn Lounge is specifically for the Children's Trust. We are raising money for the Children's Trust, which is the UK's largest charity to help children with brain injuries. So 40,000 children a year have brain injuries, whether that's accidental or through birth. And the Children's Trust really helps them through rehabilitation activities and through community service. So there is a link up below. So if you go to the website and you feel like you want to donate, that would be very much appreciated. So thank you very much. And also tomorrow we have a exciting talk coming up. So if you're interested in sports or you know somebody who is interested in sports, then we do have Mark Warburton, who was the manager for the QPR, that's the Queen Park Rangers, which is going to be very exciting. So I just want to say a big thank you for Tom for doing this incredible talk. Inspired me and hopefully inspired everybody at home. We've got so many Learn Lounges coming up to give you at home some insight to somebody like Tom's story, which hopefully will inspire you on your own career path. So thank you very much, everybody, for watching, and we'll see you next time.